It was a Thursday evening that felt too normal. That kind of quiet you don't notice, until it breaks you. Late October. The light was fading, and the sky had that cold, dry tone you only get in autumn. Everything was going too smoothly. Meetings ended on time, traffic was strangely light. I swung by the store, milk, pizza, her favorite protein shakes, and got home earlier than usual. No reason. Just one of those days when everything flows a little too easily. My name is Eric Dalton. I'm 47. Structural engineer. Married 19 years. We live in Cedar Park, just northwest of Austin, Texas. That morning, when I dropped our daughter Maddie off at school, she hugged me tighter than usual. I asked, "You okay, kiddo?" She nodded, but didn't let go right away. Just held on a second longer. It felt sweet at the time. Now? I'm not so sure. Later at work, my colleague James invited me out for a beer. Half joking, half serious, like always. I almost said yes. But I told him I had things to do and drove home. If I'd said yes, maybe what happened wouldn't have happened, at least not that day. But maybe it was always going to happen. Maybe it had to. The first thing I noticed when I stepped into the house was the smell. Chanel No. 5. Soft. Faint. But wrong. Not at 6:15 p.m. Not when she was supposed to be out with friends. I walked in and set the grocery bag down on the kitchen counter, and just stood there. The house didn't feel calm. It felt silent. The kind that gets under your skin. I called her name once. No answer. I didn't call again. There had been silence. The phone, always face down. The sudden, late nights. The mood swings. The whispering from the guest bathroom. A week ago, Maddie asked, "Dad, why does Mom leave right after I get home from school?" I brushed it off. Said she probably had errands. But now that question rang like a bell. 2 weeks ago, I set up mirrored backups of our cloud storage and email. Not because I had proof. Just instinct. Or fear. Or both. A month ago, we were having dinner, just the two of us, and out of nowhere, she asked, "Have you ever cheated on me?" I laughed. Said no. Because it was the truth. But now I wonder, was she asking, or was she confessing? A few days later, I shut down something that could have started with a coworker. There was a moment. A possibility. I closed the door. I chose family. I chose her. So when I walked toward the bedroom and heard a man's voice, low, laughing, I didn't explode. I froze. Still. Calm. Clear. No shouting. No slamming. Just that sudden clarity that only comes when everything breaks and you finally see it all. I turned around. Walked out. Got in the truck. Drove. Not far. Just to the old park near Maddie's school, where we used to go before she outgrew the swings. I sat there in the fading light, engine running, watching the clock tick forward. I didn't cry. Didn't call anyone. Didn't panic. I just started making a list in my head. What's mine? What's hers? What I'd leave without a second thought. I wasn't broken. I was waking up. Maddie's hug. The dinner question. The mirrored files. The sound of a stranger's laugh in our bedroom. Everything fit. Like hairline cracks in concrete that suddenly connect and bring the whole structure down. That night, I didn't just hear a voice. I heard the click. The sound a foundation makes when it finally gives. She thinks I just walked away. But I didn't. I stepped back, to draw a new line. She made her move. Now it's my turn. And she won't even hear the pieces move until it's too late. Because revenge you don't hear hits louder than any scream. I parked the truck in the farthest corner of the H-E-B parking lot off Lakeline Boulevard. No one notices you there at 6:53 p.m. on a Thursday. At that time, no one looks up. Everyone's just trying to get home, grab dinner, answer a few late texts. The world keeps spinning, even when yours just split down the middle. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. A calendar reminder I had set weeks ago. Family dinner with the Coopers tomorrow. That felt like another man's life. The kind of man who still believed in joint calendars. Who thought a reminder for family dinner meant something. That man didn't exist anymore. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I missed him. I sat in the truck for a long time, staring at nothing. Not angry. Not afraid. Just disassembled. Like someone had pulled my life apart with surgical precision and left the pieces on the passenger seat. I didn't go back to the house that night. Not yet. Instead, I drove to the Marriott just off Highway 183. Not a cheap hotel. Not the fanciest either. But clean, reliable, and most importantly, anonymous. I checked in under the name Daniel E. Clay, using an emergency credit card I'd opened 2 years ago and never told her about. The clerk didn't look up. Room 312. 3rd floor. End of the hall. No sound. No view. Just beige walls and a bed someone else slept in last night. The kind of place you disappear in without a trace. And right then, I didn't want to be found. Inside, the room smelled like industrial detergent and cold air conditioning. I sat on the bed, pulled the notepad from the nightstand, and clicked the pen. I thought I'd feel rage. But all I felt was gravity. Like the room had sunk an inch and I was still standing in it, trying to pretend the floor hadn't moved. Then I wrote. You already know what you did. I'm not here to explain it to you. There won't be yelling. No slamming doors. No burned clothes or broken dishes. I'm not that man. But I'll tell you this. I was the safest place you had. You lit the match anyway. No name. No signature. I folded it once and placed it into a plain envelope from my glove compartment. The next morning at 5:10 a.m., I parked a block away from the house. Walked up, quiet as a cat. Slipped the letter through the crack in the storm door. I didn't look back. If I had, I might have turned the truck around. Not to go back, but to finish what I started. Then I drove away again. The city was waking up in slow waves. Dog walkers. Joggers. Sprinklers blinking on. I took Loop 1 south and merged onto I-35, heading toward downtown. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I needed the city noise to drown out the sound of that voice in my head, hers or his, or both. At 7:22, I stopped at Thunderbird Coffee on Manor Road. I sat at the corner table where we used to come on Sundays, back when Maddie was in 2nd grade and liked the giant blueberry muffins. The same barista still worked there. She said, "Haven't seen you in a while." I answered, "Yeah. Been a long while." That table still had the chipped corner. I used to sit there while Maddie counted the chocolate chips in her muffin. Now I was sitting there alone, wondering how much of that life had been real, and how much was just hope dressed up as memory. I stayed until my coffee got cold. Then I opened my laptop. She didn't know about the mirrored backups. She didn't know what I could access. I wasn't in a rush. There was no need to confront her. Not yet. The truth has weight. And I planned to let it build until she could feel every ounce. The truth doesn't knock. It waits. Quiet. Heavy. Until the floor beneath you gives way, and it's already too late to grab on to anything solid. That's how this ends. Not with a bang. With collapse. By Saturday morning, I had a plan. Not a loud one. Not the kind with yelling or confrontation. Something quieter. Strategic. Like shifting pressure points beneath a steel beam, until it buckles exactly where you want it. I moved into a short-term rental just outside Round Rock. Furnished, quiet, and paid for in cash. The kind of place no one thinks to look if they think you've lost your mind. I hadn't. I was just done playing dumb. At 8:12 a.m., I logged into our shared Dropbox under a ghosted admin profile I'd created months ago. Her folder was titled Work and Projects. Neat. Professional. But inside, the tags told a different story. Aubrey weekend, Phoenix trip, workout log private. I didn't hesitate. I'd hesitated enough already. Click by click, her second life unfolded. Receipts. Hotel confirmations. A selfie I hadn't taken. A dinner bill from a seafood place in Scottsdale, 2 entrees, champagne, and a dessert called Lover's Creme Brulee. She'd never liked creme brulee. I didn't zoom in. I didn't need to. Some truths are clearest from a distance. At 10:46 a.m., I opened a new spreadsheet. Titled it Exit Plan. Tabs for finances, legal, Maddie's routines, and a column labeled Things She'll Lie About. That one started to fill up fast. By noon, I knew her affair wasn't recent. It had history. There were photos from last spring. One of them in a hiking lodge in Flagstaff. A shot by a fireplace, his hand on her knee. I stared at that hand longer than I should have. It looked casual. Familiar. Like it belonged there. My jaw locked. Not out of rage. Out of precision. Because now I knew what I was dealing with. And how long it had gone on. At 1:03 p.m., I visited a friend. His name's Mark. Divorce attorney. Old college roommate. We hadn't talked in a while, but when I walked into his downtown office, he stood up and said, "It's bad?" I nodded. He said, "Sit." We spent 3 hours laying the groundwork. Quiet filings. Strategic holds. Custody protections. Property tracking. He told me, "The key is calm. You get mad, you lose money." I said, "I'm not mad. I'm precise." That night, I took Maddie to Torchy's Tacos. Her favorite. It was a warm October evening. 7:41 p.m. The patio lights were glowing, the music low. She looked at me between bites and asked. She said, "Is everything okay?" I answered, "Why do you ask?" She said, "You're quiet. But different quiet." I smiled. Not fake. Not forced. Just soft. I said, "Things are changing. But not for you. You're safe." She nodded. Like she already knew. When I dropped her off that night, back at the house, where her mother lived, I didn't go inside. I watched from the curb as Maddie walked up to the front door, turned, and waved. And in that moment, I realized something. She was the reason I wasn't broken. She was the reason I was building something stronger. Not revenge. Not destruction. Structure. She tore something down. But I would be the one to rebuild. And the foundation wouldn't crack again. She thought I'd disappeared. But I wasn't gone. I was in blueprint mode. And this time, the structure would be mine. Sunday morning started like any other. But I wasn't the same. At 7:03 a.m., I was in line at the same gas station off FM 620 where I always filled up. I bought coffee, a protein bar, and a paper, yes, the actual newspaper. I wanted to be seen. I wanted someone to say, "Eric? That you?" Not because I needed confirmation. Because I needed contrast. I wasn't hiding. I was establishing normal. It's what you do before a demolition. You walk the perimeter. You assess the fault lines. Then you plant the charges, quietly. I drove past the house. Not to see her. To see the car. His car was gone. Hers was parked crooked, like she had come home in a hurry or left angry. Maybe both. I didn't go in. Didn't need to. At 8:42 a.m., I logged into our joint checking account. Routine. Normal. But then I added a layer, an alert for any transactions over $100. At 9:14 a.m., I quietly transferred half of our savings into a solo account I'd opened in my name 3 years ago. In case of emergency. I told myself back then. I guess now counted. At 10 o'clock, I took Maddie for breakfast at Kirby Lane Cafe. She ordered blueberry pancakes and a hot chocolate. I ordered coffee and kept my phone face down. She asked, "Are you going to be around this week?" I said, "I'll be nearby." "Always," she said. "Okay." One word, but it held everything. Trust. Distance. Curiosity. I didn't answer what she didn't ask. Later that afternoon, I sent one email. To her. From a clean address. No name. No subject line. Just a quote. Some betrayals are loud, yours was quiet, but the damage, it echoes. I didn't expect a reply. Didn't want one. It was a pressure test. At 4:37 p.m., she texted. She said, "Where are you?" I didn't reply. At 5:18 p.m., she called. I declined. At 6:12 p.m., another text. She said, "Eric, please talk to me." I answered, "Not yet." 3 words. That's all. But they changed the game. Because she realized I wasn't reacting. I was observing. And worse? Planning. By Monday, she called my sister. Said she was worried. My sister texted me. "What's going on?" I answered, "Tell her I'm fine." But things aren't. Tuesday morning, I met with Mark again. He handed me a folder. Inside were preliminary custody terms, timeline documents, and a list of shared assets. He said, "Once we pull the trigger, it moves fast." I answered, "Let it." Wednesday, I left a package on the doorstep. Not a bomb. A binder. Labeled, "What I Know." Inside, printouts, screenshots, travel logs, emails, and one photograph. The one by the fireplace. His hand on her knee. At 7:44 p.m., she called again. She said, "I don't know what to say." I answered, "You don't have to say anything. You already did." Click. She didn't call back. I went to the gym. Treadmill. Then rower. Then weights. Not because I needed it. Because I needed control. My heart rate was steady. My mind wasn't racing. I wasn't unraveling. I was loading the next phase. Because when a man stops yelling, and starts writing, and drawing lines, and tracking receipts, he's not lost. He's building something. And this time, she won't be able to lie her way out of it. By Thursday, something in her changed. I hadn't answered her last message. I hadn't seen her face. But I knew. The silence wasn't hers anymore, it was mine. And she felt it. At 6:30 a.m., I watched the house from 2 streets over. Just long enough to see her open the front door, hesitate, and look around like someone expecting judgment to arrive in person. It already had. I spent the morning reviewing bank statements. She'd begun transferring small amounts, $47 here, $82 there, to a second account I hadn't known about. Not smart. Not subtle. Just frantic. At 10:15 a.m., I had lunch with an old colleague from my first contracting firm. He asked, "How's everything on your end?" I said, "Evolving." He laughed. "That good, huh?" I smiled. That was enough. Afterward, I drove to Maddie's school. Sat in the truck. Didn't go in. Just watched the playground where she used to chase leaves and play tag. Sometimes, protecting your child means not being seen. Sometimes, it means preparing the world she'll have to live in after the dust settles. At 2:04 p.m., I received an email. From her. Subject: "We need to talk." No body text. Just an attachment. It was a scanned letter. Her handwriting. Rambling. Defensive. Emotional. She said, "I don't know why I did it." She said, "It didn't mean anything." She said, "I felt invisible." And then, she said, "You always looked like you had everything under control. I didn't think you'd notice if I drifted." That line didn't sting. It clarified. Because that's what people like her do, they mistake calm for absence. Stillness for blindness. But I wasn't blind. I was watching. Calculating. Waiting. I didn't respond. At 5:32 p.m., I saw her call Maddie. FaceTime. From the parking lot of a Walgreens. Her face was blotchy, like she'd been crying. She said, "Hey, baby. You okay?" Maddie said, "Yeah. Dad and I are gonna get Thai food tonight." She paused, then forced a smile. She said, "That sounds nice." Maddie handed me the phone. She said, "Eric." I answered, "You should talk to your lawyer." Click. At 7 p.m., we sat outside a little Thai place on Burnett Road. Maddie ate pad CW. I picked up my curry. She asked, "Is Mom gonna be okay?" I answered, "Eventually. But that's not our job to fix." She nodded. Like an adult. Too young to carry that weight, but wise enough to understand it. Later that night, I started packing the last of my tools from the garage. Old measuring tape. Drafting pencils. A cracked laser level I never threw away. Everything she would never think to touch. Everything that built the life we had. I opened a small lockbox with our old house papers. Found a photo. The three of us. Maddie was 6. We were at the Grand Canyon. Sunburned, grinning, messy hair and windblown. For 1 second I let myself feel it. Then I slipped it back in the envelope. And locked it. Because memories are not evidence. And hope is not a plan. At 11:04 p.m., my phone buzzed. One text. She said, "You've changed." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I answered. I said, "No. I just stopped performing the version of me that let you lie without consequence." That was the night the shift in her eyes became real. Not fear. Not regret. Recognition. She finally saw me. It started with a voicemail. Her voice too sweet, too careful. She said, "Hey, just wondering if you're okay. Maddie misses you. We should talk." I didn't answer. She called again the next day. Texted a picture of Maddie's painting from school, with a caption. "She made this for you." I saved the photo. Not for her, for Maddie. I didn't respond. By Thursday, she was standing outside my temporary condo. Same parking spot. Same hesitant knock. I saw her through the peephole. Didn't open. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. That woman, the one who stood by the front door with a coffee in her hand like it still meant something, wasn't my wife. Not anymore. She sent an email that night. Subject line, "Please." I opened it, read every word, then closed the tab. The words weren't new. Regret. Confusion. Blame scattered like dandelion seeds. No mention of him. Just avoidance, wrapped in soft vowels and performative guilt. I wasn't interested in performance anymore. At 9:12 a.m. Friday, I logged into the shared parenting calendar and created an entry. Dad's weekend with Maddie, extended, Friday 3 p.m. to Monday 8 a.m. No permission. No discussion. Just structure. She replied, "We usually alternate weekends. Can we talk?" I didn't answer the email. I picked up Maddie early. We went to the batting cages. She laughed when I missed a fastball. Then we got burgers at the old diner on Main. She said, "You're quiet. But not sad quiet. More like thinking quiet." I said, "I'm building something." She smiled. That was enough. That night, while Maddie was asleep, I opened a folder marked Restoration. Inside were receipts. Statements. Logs. I documented everything. Dates, locations, calls, hotel charges. Not for revenge. For custody. Let the lawyer sort the rest. She called again Saturday. This time, it was different. Sharper. Urgent. She said, "I need to see you. Please, Eric. Just 5 minutes." I answered, "This number is now for Maddie only." Then I blocked her. I wasn't angry. Just finished. Sunday, Maddie found an old photo of us, her, me, and her mother, at a beach in Galveston. She looked at it for a long time. She said, "You looked happy." I said, "I believed I was." She didn't ask more. Monday morning, I dropped Maddie off. Her mom opened the door. She looked tired. Hollow. She said, "Can we please talk?" I said, "Not today." She reached out, touched my arm lightly. She said, "I made a mistake." It wasn't the first time I'd heard that line. But it was the first time I didn't feel the need to lean in. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to fix anything. I said, "No. You made a choice." Then I turned and walked away. That night she sent a message through her lawyer. She wanted to reconcile. To attend counseling. To try again, for Maddie. I didn't respond. Because trying again meant pretending it didn't happen. And pretending wasn't part of the plan anymore. She thought I'd stay in orbit waiting. She didn't understand. I wasn't moving on out of spite. I was moving on because the road behind me had no more exits. I had blueprints to follow. She thought there'd be time to fix it. But she forgot who she married. A man who doesn't rebuild broken walls. He draws new ones. Without doors. I didn't expect the silence to last this long. But some silences aren't empty. They're full, of fear, of waiting, of knowing. By Wednesday, her lawyer had stopped reaching out. No new motions. No counteroffers. Just nothing. I met with Mark again. We reviewed everything. He said, "If she's stalling, it's because she's hoping you'll flinch." I answered, "She doesn't know me anymore." He nodded. "Then she's in for a surprise." Maddie was adjusting. Quietly, but steadily. Less time with her mother. More time with books. She asked questions, but fewer each week. Like she already knew what the answers would be. One night she said, "Are we ever going to live in the same house again?" I said, "Not the same one. But one we choose." She said, "That's okay. I just want you to be okay." That sentence almost broke me. Almost. But not quite. Because I had work to do. I'd been looking at land just outside Georgetown. Nothing fancy. Good soil. Good light. Room for Maddie's dog. Room for quiet. The metaphor wasn't lost on me. Build from scratch. No cracks in the walls. Nothing borrowed. Nothing owed. Friday, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Her handwriting. Inside. She said, "I don't recognize who you've become. You're so cold." I read it. Folded it once. Filed it. I answered, only in my mind. "You never saw who I was to begin with." Later that evening, I stood in the garage at my rental. Boxes packed. Tools stacked. One shelf left, wedding albums, a photo of Maddie as a baby, a sealed envelope with our vows. I took the photo. I left the rest. Because this wasn't about forgetting. It was about choosing what comes with you when you start over. The final court date was set 2 weeks. No more delays. No more appeals. I'll walk in with my head up, hands steady, documents aligned. She'll speak. Maybe cry. Maybe stall. It won't change anything. Because justice isn't the moment you win. It's the moment you stop chasing what was broken and start protecting what matters. The night before that court date, I'll sit on that new land with a folding chair and a cold drink. I'll watch the sky darken without fear. And when the wind comes through the grass, I'll finally hear it for what it is. Not warning. Not threat. Just quiet. The kind that doesn't ask anything of you. The kind you earn. And if this story spoke to you, tell me where you're watching from. City, state, doesn't matter. Just drop a comment below. Let's see how far quiet strength can travel.